Acapulco just premiered its third season on Apple TV Plus, and today we are joined by its showrunner Austin Winsberg and actor Rafael Cebrian.
What's up, movie friends? Welcome back to Raiders of the Lost podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast. And today we're doing a special episode with the creator and one of the lead actors of Acapulco. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming. Go ahead and introduce yourselves. We have Austin Winsberg, the showrunner, and Rafael Cebrian, one of the actors from the show.
Yes.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's us.
That's me too.
Yeah. Well, how did the show get developed? Where it started from, its origin, inspirations behind it? We'd love to talk about it.
Sure. I mean, the specific origins of this show was that there was a movie called How to Be a Latin Lover, starring Eugenio Derbez, that Lionsgate put out several years ago. And I was under a deal at Lionsgate, and they came to me and said, we want to turn this into a TV series. I think Eugenio had actually had the idea to do, there was one scene in the movie that was set, sorry.
You can take the headphones off. You don't have to.
Way too loud for me.
You don't have to wear them.
I just took my headphones off, guys. There was one scene in the movie that was set at this resort in the 80s, and which was like a kind of a little bit of the origin story of what had happened to the character in the movie. And Eugenio thought this would be a good idea to set an entire show in that time period at this hotel. So that was kind of all that he had, was we want to do a show that's like an origin story of the character from the movie at this hotel in the 80s. They came to me with it. And then I brought in a couple other writer friends of mine, Jason Schumann and Eduardo Cisneros. We started talking about the show and figuring out a way to kind of turn that core little idea into more of a show.
Yeah, in that movie he plays a gigolo, right? And he marries like some rich older lady.
That's right. So the original pitch for the show, well, the whole movie is about him hooking up with older women.
Yeah, it's more like the Hector character.
Yes, a lot like the actor in a way. And so the original conceit was how, like, the movie's called How to Be a Latin Lover, but I actually never saw in the movie how he became a Latin lover. So we thought this could be like his hero origin story. And in the original conceit, there was like a My Fair Lady aspect. There was an older woman who teaches him the ways of romance. There was a lot of him trying to have sex with older women. And as we were pitching it, it was kind of the early days of the Me Too movement. And people were like, no one wants to watch a show about this kind of thing right now.
Yeah.
And so when we pitched it to Apple, they really liked the team and they liked the core ideas behind it. And they said, is there a way to make this a little bit sweeter? Is there a way to make this a little bit more of like a Wonder Years kind of show? And one of my favorite movies always was The Flamingo Kid. I don't know if you guys know that movie.
No, I don't.
Yeah, see, aging myself, guys. But that movie took place at a resort, and it was about kind of people working there, and it was sort of the behind the scenes of the the haves and the have-nots. And so we took a lot of those ideas that we had initially and put them into this new version of the show.
It's a great ensemble of a cast, and everyone's balanced really well in the story. And I also love the look of the hotel. Was that hotel, like, you have so many purples and pinks throughout the entire production design, was that already like that, or did you actually make that?
That was directly a response of our pilot director, Richard Shepard. So I had worked with Richard on a show called Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist before that, and him and I had gotten really close, and he is a master pilot director. And part of what makes him so good is setting the looks and setting the feels for every TV show. So he's had at least a dozen TV pilots that he's directed go straight to series. And he came in and just wanted the world to feel joyous and celebratory and very, very Mexican. And so we had found some images of some pink hotels in Acapulco in the 80s, and he said, paint it all pink. And that was the start. Honestly, that was the very first thing, was paint the hotel pink.
It's fantastic. And also, I love all the Spanish covers of the famous pop culture music that we hear in every episode from the performers.
Yeah, that was another thing that came out of my love for music and musical theater. And I think I had gone to some resort somewhere where I had seen people like Adriana and Augusto, our pool performers, and they just always seemed funny to me. And we kind of latched on to this idea of what if we could do American songs in Spanish every week. And it was sort of a way to do like a spin on the 80s thing. And then we got really lucky with Rosanna and Rodrigo, our two performers, and they just give it their all. So one of my favorite things of the show is coming up with the song of the week, making sure that song ties in thematically, then working with our great music supervisors, and then having
the titles too are songs from 80s, right?
Yes. Yeah, except that's also confusing because the titles of the episodes are not the songs that we use in the episodes.
Yeah.
So I don't know why that became the thing, but
I like it a lot.
But there's so much great physical comedy, and Rafael, I think you're a scene stealer in this show with Hector. The performances, it toes the line between endearing and highly comedic, but also so much charm. Where was your inspiration for the character? And I felt like, I don't know, maybe some Antonio Banderas suaveness. It reminded me of his character, particularly in Zorro, where he's trying to be suave, but in reality, he's not really inside.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was a big fan of the movie How to Be a Latin Lover, and when I first got the audition, I was like, oh, I know this. I know this world. I know what they want. The whole like seductive, sexy, gigolo Latin lover vibe. I think I can play with that. And I also, for some reason, I don't know if we have ever talked about this, but when I first got the size for Hector, I was like, oh, I'm like the older dude who's going to be showing Maximo the ropes of how to become a Latin lover. So I just played it along those lines. I just played the suaveness, the sexiness of it all. And in terms of, yeah, I thought it'd be funny to do it with an accent. I've never really worked with an accent before. So I was like, why not? Let's see if they like it. And I think, look, I couldn't really pinpoint a specific actor or inspiration. I do think that every character that I play, obviously, is filtered through me. So there's a little bit of my DNA that gets impregnated in the performance. I was a huge fan of John Travolta growing up. So maybe the strut came up from there as well.
Saturday Night Fever strut for sure.
Yeah. Although that strut also, I also did not tell you about this. But that was...
I'm learning so much right now.
Yeah, right? Look at this. It's educational.
It's
the night before we shot that first big scene, because we shot this in 2021, and we were still like locked up in such a sort of COVID bubble. We couldn't leave our rooms for 3 days when we first got to the hotel. Anyway,
we couldn't leave the hotel for the first 3 months that we shot the show.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All of season 1, we were not allowed to leave the hotel.
Yeah.
Jesus,
We
like
were
the
in-
NBA quarantine.
Yeah, it really was. It was kind of these golden handcuffs that we were stuck at this hotel for 3 months straight. And at first that sounds awesome, but after like day 3, you're like, what
No,
are we
cabin
doing?
fever.
Yeah.
Cabin fever. So I was like, "Oh, I'm filming tomorrow. I'm like stuck in my room, stuck in this hotel. I don't know. I just need to get out and, loosen up. I don't know, shake it up a little bit." So I was just thinking about the scene for tomorrow, and I was walking around the pool, listening to Jump from Van Halen.
As you do.
Yeah. And
Hell
then
yeah.
all of a sudden I was messing around, being goofy, being silly, and that strut came along, but I was not thinking that I was going to do it. It was just like a way for me to, shake the nerves out the night before. And then I was like, wait, hold on a second. What if I do this? And then I was like, should I not? Because if I do it and, the show goes for long enough, I'm going to have to do this for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons. I don't know. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it. And Richard Shepard didn't say anything. You did not say anything. So I was like, I think we'll just go
And
for
now
it.
you have to do the strut every
And
single
now
time.
every single time.
And now
That's
you
great.
see him on set before a shot, and has his headphones on. He has his very short shorts that he has to wear in the pool, and he literally like psychs himself up, like almost like a boxer going into the ring. Before every take, he like does the strut. He's by himself, and I was like, we gotta leave Rafael alone for a moment while he gets into character.
It absolutely
Yep.
reminds me of Travolta in the opening of Saturday Night Fever, where it opens with the title credits of him walking on the sidewalk for 3 minutes, and it reminded me of that.
Yeah,
And please
for sure.
talk about the hair, the curls.
Again, I think that was all just hair and makeup. Austin is so anal and specific
I mean,
about.
anal sounds a little not great.
No, I mean it's
Maybe like beautifully perfectionist.
Yes,
Focused.
He's
Focused.
Fine-tuned.
Sure. I mean, listen, I have OCD, so
Wow. Okay.
Like I'm
Now,
also.
that's what we're calling it.
Yeah. He's so meticulous about the hair detail. Is it too high? Is it too low? Is it too? I don't know.
I didn't want him to look like Flock of Seagulls, guys. I just wanted. His hair has a mind of its own. The humidity is another big
Well,
challenge
wow,
in
yeah.
Mexico. So oftentimes throughout the day, just trying to create a look and then keep a look is very difficult. And there were variations on the hair. I mean, it's very aerodynamic.
I want to go high, but he wants to go low.
Yeah.
So there's always a push and pull.
Like in politics.
Is it?
I don't know.
But it gives it, because everyone's wearing a uniform most of the time, it gives it that 80s flair.
It gives it that 80s
Yeah.
flair. I think it gives it a different type of presence. It adds to the physical comedy. Again, Travolta, I'm sure, is in there. Jim Carrey, he's another actor that made me want to become an actor. I feel like there's a little bit of that mask element, the famous movie.
Oh, yeah,
1993,
absolutely.
Of course.
In Hector.
The 80s thing, though, that you said, there's a fine line where 80s can look like you're spoofing the 80s and feel a little cartoony.
Yeah.
And so this was a lot of our early conversations in trying to create the look and the feel and tone of the 80s, was to not make it feel like a joke, was to make it feel still a comedy, but authentic. And so that's why I get anal, I think, about the hair and the wardrobe and the sets and all that stuff too, is because we never want it to feel like a joke. We want it to feel like it is grounded in some kind of reality. And I think sometimes you'll see 80s things set in the 80s that feel more jokey or cartoony.
I think the 80s is one of my favorite parts of the show, the pop culture, the music, but also this coming of age story for these characters. And it feels sort of like, when I watch the show, like Grand Budapest Hotel, we have this older character telling the stories from his past of how he got this rags to riches story and exploring the past in way more detail with this. That's like one of the first things I thought of when I saw the show for the first time.
I love that movie. That's one of my favorite Wes Anderson movies.
Yeah,
Maybe
me
my
too.
favorite.
I think it's probably his best movie, but this show feels like that, Grand Budapest Hotel, except just very long.
And we're getting Wes Anderson to direct all of season 4.
Amazing.
You heard it here first. That's an exclusive. That's not true.
That guy's so busy, he makes like 8 movies a year. Every time I go on Twitter, announces a new movie. How do you have time to make that many movies?
And how are they so specific? I talk about anal.
See?
Talk about
I
anal
know.
details. I mean, that guy. He's created an entire aesthetic that's all his own. It's amazing.
He just made an ad for desks and pens, and it was like the most beautiful ad I've ever seen.
Was it the Mont Blanc?
Yeah, with Linus Sandgren, who did Salper
yeah.
and shot it, and it just looks incredible. I was like, this is just a
Have you seen
commercial?
No, but I went to a coffee shop that he designed in Amsterdam.
Oh,
at
that's
a museum,
right.
at the
I've heard of
Prada
that.
Museum.
I've heard of that.
Yes.
And that
Wow.
was incredible.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I haven't been.
I love when directors do commercials. Like Scorsese just did Chanel Blue with Timothy Chalamet.
Oh, that was great.
It's such a great ad. It's beautiful. Have you guys seen that
No.
one?
I've seen
it's-
that one too.
It's so nice.
It's incredible.
Really
Yeah.
Raphael just watches director ads all day.
great.
I did a Verizon commercial.
Oh, nice, dude. Hell yeah.
I got
Yep.
I got fired from a Ryder Trucks commercial when I was a kid actor.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd you do?
Disruptive on set. I don't know.
Is he like that on Acapulco? Disruptive on set?
So disruptive. Yeah.
Very
So you're a
good.
child actor?
I was a bit of a child
Yeah?
actor. I grew up in LA, and I was a not very successful child actor.
Okay, cool.
He loves musical theater. I love musical theater, and I feel like that's also one of the things that we connect on. But I don't know.
We went to the same college too.
We
That's
did.
very
Oh, wow.
exciting.
We found out.
Different times.
You guys
Later.
going to do a musical episode?
It's
That's-
been discussed a little bit.
Yeah.
It's been what's amazing, not on purpose, is we actually have a deep bench of really good singers on the show. Cord Overstreet from Glee, Regina, who is a giant star in Mexico.
Yeah.
Regina Orozco.
Yes.
And
well, obviously the Pool Singers.
the Pool Singers, and Fernando, who plays Memo, was a musical theater major. So there is a world where we really could do it, and we just have to think if that makes sense to do it.
That would be fun.
I mean, all the elements are there. It's so flashy. It's so fun. And back to the pink, is that the Mexican pink, that color that we saw in Barbie as well? Because I know Rodrigo Prieto, who's cinematographer for Barbie, he brought that to the aesthetic to that movie Barbie, and that's the first thing I thought of when I first saw the show.
I don't think it's the same pink as in the Barbie movie. It's the Mexican pink that you can find, and I'm blanking right now on the famous Mexican architect who made that color big. But Las Colinas, correct me if I'm wrong, is also based on Las Brisas, which is this famous Acapulco hotel. But also, if you go to Mexico City, there's El Camino Real, which is another very famous hotel, and they have that specific Mexican pink that you can see in Acapulco.
Yeah. But we did think about, when we were trying to come up with some viral ad stuff for season 3, if we could piggyback off of the Barbie pink phenomenon.
Yeah. it looks like,
Yeah,
I
we
mean, that
talked about
same
it.
color.
How
Yeah.
so? I want to know.
No, I think I
doing
just had
what?
some ideas for I forget what it was, but we had some funny pink ideas that we were going to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I like the filmmaking evolved, and we got a great oneer in season 3. I can't remember the particular episode. It was a great oneer of Maximo walking through the pool area
Yeah.
with several people coming up to him, and that got me really excited. I was like, that was great. Is there more of that coming?
I love oneers. I mean, we not to keep talking about Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, the show I did right before this, but Zoe's had 4 to 6 musical numbers every episode, and almost every one of those was a oneer. And so I just feel like any time that you could do a oneer, first of all, it actually makes shooting go faster. You think it's going to take longer, but if you rehearse it well enough, then you could do something in 3 or 4 takes. that's something that you'd maybe have to get it from 10 different angles. So there is a way that it actually is economically and time helping too. And it feels creative, and it feels a little bit like theater, like he's saying too, just because you know that this all happened and everybody had to work together in that moment. So I'm always in favor of doing more one-ers when we can.
It really brings the audience into the moment, and it transforms them and immerses them into what's happening. When you don't cut, it's incredible.
And it's funny because sometimes people don't even realize they're one-ers when they're one-ers, but
those are the best kind.
It brings the audience, but it also brings the actors into this specific world. I feel like when we're shooting them, they're my favorite part of the show. I feel like we get one, like just that one. There's a bunch of one-ers in the season, but there's like that one big pool one-er. It usually comes early in the season.
Yeah, Jay does them, right?
Yeah, Jay does them.
Jay Karras, who's our producing director on the show, loves doing those kind of one-ers too,
Yeah.
and being inventive about them. And I think it forces everyone to really focus
Yeah.
because it is all about timing, and you never want to be the one that screws it up 2 minutes into the one-er.
It's a choreography. And it's also really cool because we get to figure it out on the go. Like I'll be like, oh, you know what? Can I have a beach ball right here, like flying into the shot, and then maybe like a towel, and then Maximo finds some sunscreen. It's really cool. Planning it is a huge choreography. I have a lot of fun with it. There's also a really good one in season 2. I think in the first episode of season 2, first episode of season 1. The first time Hector shows up,
That's a one-er.
in season 1,
Yeah.
it's a one-er, but then in post
We
there's
added a couple
inserts.
cuts.
Yeah,
But I debated that in post.
you did.
Yeah.
Why did you? We never talked about that. Why did you insert?
We don't talk about everything.
I know.
Why did you?
We're
cut-
very close,
Why did you
but-
cut me?
Curious.
I think because it was lacking a little bit of specificity about what those things were
Right,
in that
like
moment.
the money.
Yeah, like the money and the
Yeah.
slipping in.
Yeah,
Like we
yeah,
just
yeah.
needed those close-ups to understand what was happening a little bit better in
You're
that
right.
moment, I think. You guys don't know what we're talking about here.
It's all right. No.
Well,
It's all good.
what's the challenge with being a showrunner? Because you're not directing every episode. Maybe not everyone knows what a showrunner does, but there are directors for every episode. What's the challenge with keeping the vision the same throughout the entire several seasons? Like you have different directors that maybe want to do different things. They have ideas, but you also have to maintain the presence of the creative vision. Maintaining that. What's the biggest challenge there?
I think that is actually arguably my biggest job in the show. And I have other, on this particular show, I have other showrunners that I've brought in to do the show with me. So in the first 2 seasons, a guy named Chris Harris, and in season 3, a guy named Sam Laybourne, who I'd worked with before. And so it does take a whole village to put these things together, but tone is the number one thing that I'm always guarding. We have something called tone meetings with directors before they shoot. So in the weeks leading up to shooting, when they're doing all of their prep, we will sit down with them and we'll go page by page. This takes hours, and we talk about what is the tone of the scene, what are we going for in the scene, what are we trying to achieve emotionally, what kind of shots are you getting, what shots are you thinking about, and if someone says, well, I'm going to do this overhead shot that pushes down on them and it's going to be super cool, you're like, that doesn't really sound like our show. We're going to do this whip pan here like they do on The Office. Well, that doesn't really sound like what we do on the show. So you start to create a visual language and a cinematic language for the show, and then you try to give the directors creativity because you want them to make it their own to some extent, but you also want to make sure that they're still playing within the sandbox that you've created. And it's the same thing in the writer's room with the scripts. It's the same thing in post with editing. It's the same thing with costumes, with hair, with all of it. It's all of a piece that and the things that people know who work with me now is like, I don't like too much hijinks. I don't like things that go too tonally broad. I like things to feel grounded. I like things to have emotion and comedy with heart, where you're caring about the characters. And so when everybody understands that they're kind of rowing in the same direction, and I think that's a lot of the work with everybody, is understanding what's the overall vision. And then within that overall vision, then I think people can play with it. But that is one of the main jobs I view as a showrunner, is having a very specific vision and then getting everybody to sort of realize that vision and work together within that vision. And then obviously be surprised and collaborative. And what I say with like you hire good people and then you try to work together with them. So like, I never want to clip somebody's wings. I just want them to be the best versions of themselves within the thing that we're creating.
And then with television, generally directors sort of aren't involved too much in post-production, right? You're kind of leading the charge there.
Yeah. So the directors turn in their director's cut and then they're gone.
They're just gone
They're
for
gone.
good.
They turn in their homework.
Literally. So like they get, I think 4 or 5 days. That's all to do their director's cut after they've finished shooting their episode. And then I'm with the cut for weeks after that. And then I go through the mix. I go through all the music, the music spotting and then the music composing and then adding all the, so we have a combination on the show of we have a music composer who does a lot of the scoring. And then we also have certain needle drops, which are like the songs that you know better, that will come in throughout the episodes too. So they are there they kind of put their vision out there. Like, this is our cut. Now make of it what you will. So the showrunner really has, unlike in movies where the directors are the final say, the showrunners are the final say on the TV side.
Are you shooting with every episode? Because I'm thinking about the time jumps, the present day older Maximo. Are you doing that all in one chunk, or are you doing it as the season progresses with each director?
That's a great question.
Because I was wondering, are you just doing that in a week and getting all that coverage, or is every director coming in and shooting with those actors as well as at Acapulco?
So Eugenio Derbez, who plays the older Maximo, is a very busy man.
I figured, yeah, he's huge.
Terrific. So good in Coda. Yeah.
And we get him for a small chunk of time every season. So we typically have saved all his stuff for the last 2-3 weeks of shooting. So the directors will leave and come back to shoot their 5 pages that they have with him for the episode. So it's a kind of a gargantuan task that he takes on, because he'll have to shoot 50, 70, 80 pages of material.
All dialogue.
And most of it's in English, and English is his second language. So we have to give him his material pretty far in advance just so he can learn it. And then we'll go through 5, 6, 7 pages of dialogue a day with him, which is also why some of his stuff is relatively sedentary, where it's like he'll be sitting at a table or he'll be in a car or something like that, because we just don't have a lot of time to do it. And so but we do have the benefit of knowing what we've already shot. So sometimes that helps us, because we're able to adjust the dialogue after the fact to work with, now we know, or sometimes we've edited a lot of it too. So we're like, no, we know this is going in here, so we have to change a little bit of what this. So it does give us a little bit of pre-planning help, but no, he comes in for like 2 weeks and crushes it.
He last time for season 3, he was there. He came in for 3 weeks. 1 week where he was just studying, working, and then 2 weeks where he was filming. But it's 10 episodes. 2 weeks is 10 days of filming, so he's basically doing an episode a day.
And you got to perform with him in a great episode.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it was. How was it playing an older version of the character you had done for 2 seasons?
It was a huge challenge for me, and I got to give it to this guy and the writers for trusting me with such a task. I've never done anything quite like it, and I think I just slowed him down, lowered the register of my voice. But at the same time, I didn't want to lose what made him Hector and what made people fall in love with the character, his mannerisms. I just try to tone it down a little bit. When you see Hector in present day, he's already made it. He's kind of like fulfilled his dream. So he's more comfortable with who he is. He's more secure. He's also more settled in his body. So to me, it was all about rhythm and slowing everything down.
I felt the evolution. I was really impressed with that.
Really?
I think it was your best acting in the show,
Oh,
because
thank you.
it honestly, I did a double take. I was like, oh, is that still him? And
Oh,
within the
appreciate
first like
that.
20 seconds, and then the hair, makeup, and
Well,
then
I was-
the way
How
he performed.
good was that hair and makeup?
It was
I was about
fantastic.
to say-
That was some of the best aging
Yeah.
makeup I've
Yeah.
ever seen.
It was so subtle, but it worked.
And to be honest, I mean, that helped a lot.
And also that idea, we've seen multiple times in the show now, older versions of younger characters, and we've always recast. And I just felt like Hector was timeless and that he would age very well. So I'm like, no, we should just have Rafael play the older version of himself.
Yeah, and you pulled it off, man. I felt like it was Hector who had gone through a lifetime of lessons, and now
Oh,
we're
man,
here
thank you.
like 25 years later, and it's like the same person, but they've evolved into a new person.
Thank you. I also worked with this guy called Christoph, and we kind of like did movement because Hector is so physical in the 80s, so we trying to find. I did animal work basically. I'm getting super actory right
Sorry,
now.
what?
Go for
I
it.
know.
Go
I'm
ahead,
getting
man.
You did
super
animal
actor
work?
right now.
Actors do weird stuff. Let's
I
hear
mean,
it.
like this is weird. This is weird.
What kind of animal work?
This is so
Were you a giraffe?
close.
What?
I was a
Flamingo?
horse. No, I was a horse. I was like one of those.
A giraffe and a horse are not close.
Well,
what are you talking about?
I guess you're right. No, but like I did animal work for older Hector. I just feel like four-legged, whatever.
Why
Well,
did you
a giraffe is kind of like a horse with a huge neck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's-
but I
well,
did like
thank
these,
you for-
these big Spanish stallion horses.
Ah,
That's what I was playing with. That have like a long mane.
sure. Yeah.
And that's Hector in the present day.
What animal is Hector in 1985?
I
cheetah.
didn't do animal work for that.
Should we do some now?
Please, would you
Well,
demonstrate?
Travolta's an animal, so it was that.
That's true.
No, to me, it's. I think they're always playing more with rhythm. In the 80s, I play more with rhythm and with movement of flow, water, snake.
Wow, he got real actory on us. Guys.
Yeah, this is cringy. Sorry.
Hey, whatever
That's all good.
helps.
Because
I'm
sometimes it doesn't
uncomfortable.
work. Like when I love De Niro and I love The Irishman, but he looks like an 80-year-old man beating up people on the street when he's been aged down.
That's true.
So that did when I was watching
the
the movie, I
kick?
still loved it. But he's like, it's clearly De Niro. He's old. Pacino somehow brings that energy at like 80 years old as well. I don't know how he still does it, but whenever I watch The Irishman, you can tell it's an old man, even though they de-aged him. So I think it's tough to do the
Can
reverse.
you guys
probably.
answer a question for me?
Yeah.
When we see deep fake technology
I know
on
where
the
you're going
internet,
with this.
or
You
deep-
love this. You love talking about this.
I
go.
do.
Let's
This
get
is
in.
like a,
You
Let's
and I
get
have
in.
talked about this so many times.
we have.
Yes, I know where you're going. You want to say
Wow.
what specific example you're thinking of?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Papacito.
I literally don't know what you're talking about.
Austin.
What?
You know what I'm talking about.
What are you talking about?
Can I say what I'm talking about? Can
I
say
don't
the
know what it-
movie. It came out last summer.
What movie?
Uh,
Indiana Jones?
yes.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about
We
that.
had a long.
Oh,
conversation
can we talk about that on Raiders of the Lost
Yeah,
Ark?
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's my question
Yes.
for the room. It's a question for the room. When I see like on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, when I see like a de-aging thing that someone's done with like a deep fake program, it looks incredible.
Yeah.
And it's like it costs no money, or it was like some weird app or something, and you're like, oh my God, that really looks like them. But then you watch a movie like last summer's Raiders in the first 20 minutes, and you feel the CGI.
Did it bug you?
Yes.
Did it take you
yeah,
out
it
of
felt
it?
like a video game to me in the first
I
20
think it
minutes.
worked for like when they first pulled the mask off his head, and it looks terrific. Those first few seconds, the fire on his skin and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the
But-
eyes.
Yeah, but then
There's
after
something-
when you get more into
Yes.
the scene, they cleverly hit it mostly with the night scene. I think really well because
Of
it's
course.
darkly lit on the top of the train and everything. But still, it's like that uncanny valley. I think that's the problem when it's so close to being real, but you can tell it's
Totally.
artificial.
And it was definitely better in that movie than in other ones I've seen.
Yeah.
But what I and maybe it's just the length of time of it. Maybe it's shorter in some of those clips I'm seeing online. But it's like they'll throw, lots of millions and millions of dollars into the effects work that don't seem as good to me as the things that I'm seeing on my phone. And that's the thing that's confusing to me.
I would say so. A lot of the
And The Irishman is a good example. of that.
Yeah.
A lot of the programs are privately made. So Lucasfilm actually snatched one of the guys who made this crazy deep fake technology, and they've been using him for the last year and a half on their projects, which has improved their projects. But I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when those films were in development, they probably thought, oh, these deep fake things, it's not real, it's not going to be as good. We've been doing it this way with this process for a few years now. They probably stubbornly thought it would work better, and then they found that it wouldn't be better. And I guess also when some of them, they look great, maybe just on a phone without too much movement, without very
And not
different
on a big,
angles.
not on a big
Screen.
screen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not interacting with other actors.
Yeah.
Like some of the Schwarzenegger stuff, it's uncanny, but like it's just a couple of shots, and they're very simple shots of him looking at frame, things like that. So I think that the simplicity of the content that's being deep faked helps make it look better. Whereas they are getting better, but it always looks better with something like Apes, where Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes looks fantastic, but the human face is so hard to change in post, where it's really the way the mouth moves, the way the eyes move, and it's so hard to express emotion even with a real performer. So I think they're getting there, and they've been using a lot of these private coders and people who have made their own technologies and bring them into their studios. So it's going to get better.
Well, he knew way more than I was
Well,
expecting that.
I wonder if it's something to do with the age of the characters too in the actor, because obviously Harrison's old as hell. But he still looks great.
The voice throws you
dare
off.
you.
Social Network. I mean, that looked pretty good in Social Network. The Army
The two
Hammer.
Winklevosses?
Yeah, the Winklevosses.
look
twins.
Yeah,
great.
but there was no aging stuff there, right?
sure,
That was
exactly, that's what I
doubling.
mean.
What
So,
about
yeah.
Benjamin Button? with
Benjamin
Brad
Button,
Pitt?
so
that
yeah.
was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was pretty good.
That looked
I
pretty
thought that was
good.
amazing. And again, 20 years ago.
I think a lot of that was makeup work too. I
Yes.
think it's the CGI aspect. Here's my hot take. I don't think the technology's there yet. So I don't think they should be doing that yet.
Well,
they'll
that's never stopped them
They'll never
before,
perfect
you know?
the technology if they don't try.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
all right.
Yeah, I
And
guess
like-
the Irishman,
that's
they
fair.
really
Yeah.
pioneered it really big time.
You look at CGI 20 years ago, it looked terrible, but when we were watching
Yeah,
it in
yeah.
real time, it looked like unbelievable.
I watched Anaconda with my son last night. The scenes where the snake is wrapping around the people.
Oh my God.
So bad.
When I was a kid, I thought it looked so real.
Incredible.
I thought it was a real snake.
Yeah.
John Voight's so creepy in that
Oh
movie.
my
He's
God.
just staring at Jennifer Lopez like,
so creepy, and like that accent, it all feels like cultural appropriation. Meets Me Too stuff. It's all uncomfortable.
And Ice Cube is just there. He's just killing it.
And Owen Wilson. They have
Owen Wilson.
forgot he was there.
Wow.
You're right.
Does
They
he
have
get a
always-
wow in?
Wow.
Does he get a wow?
Oh, he gets
Wow.
a wow
I
in.
don't think he does.
He wasn't that big yet to get
Owen
wows
Wilson
in.
and Ice Cube and J-Lo, they have like nothing to do in the movie. They're just standing there in every
I
scene.
love J-Lo.
There's a moment, the bee in
great.
the throat, that gets me.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Wasp.
That's
It was a
the wasp.
I know
That's
this well now because I saw
Oh my god, that
Wow.
that always irked me as a kid. That was
Very
that was
upsetting.
Yeah,
Man, what a movie. I forgot about that movie.
I don't know if I should recommend watching it.
I think
again or
everybody
not.
forgot about
My son my son's 10 and he wanted to watch a horror movie. And I was like, what's a horror movie that I feel like is safe enough for him at 10? You know, like
Gave him
Anaconda. Yeah, because he wants to watch It or like Conjuring or something that's like scarier. So,
Yeah.
so he really wants to watch The Sixth Sense, but then I remember there's some
Ah.
really messed up moments in The Sixth
Yeah,
Sense.
Sixth Sense
so-
gets a little
you should
dark.
watch the others. It's PG, and it's
Oh.
a great horror film with
Great.
Nicole Kidman. PG. There's
I
no
love,
gore.
I love the others. I didn't know that was PG.
No
ones.
gore, no violence,
That's a good
nothing.
suggestion.
Yeah, so that I watched it a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, this is PG, and it's actually still scary because I watched it years ago. I didn't realize it was not
Yeah,
R.
great suggestion.
Signs
We'll-
as well. M. Night
Signs
Shyamalan.
could be
Signs is
good.
great.
Signs
Yeah.
is great. I
That's
saw this
another good
great
one.
theory on Signs the other day. You guys are all familiar with it, right?
Yeah.
Seen
Yeah.
the movie. And it was
No
the theory
spoilers, it's
that
fine.
it's not aliens, but it's demons. And so there's a theory that, the water hurts them because it's holy water, because maybe the daughter is an angel. Obviously, he's a priest. I don't know if I believe it I agree with it completely, because I know there's a bird that flies into like an invisible ship
Yeah.
in the movie. But it's an
That's hard to
interesting
explain,
theory
yeah.
that rather than being aliens, they're actually demons. And it ties in with all the religious motifs throughout the film.
Wow, you guys are nerdy.
Oh, dude,
Have you seen the
we have a
studio?
film podcast for a reason.
I'll talk all film with you. You want? What, what else
do you
like
guys
about-
recognize that poster?
this one?
Yeah,
I don't.
Hold
Oh,
I
on.
definitely don't.
that's a good film Easter egg right there.
it's in a movie.
This actual thing is in the movie.
It's in
Yeah.
the movie.
One-
So it's not representative of
No.
the movie.
No.
Yeah.
That one dog looks east, one dog looks west.
One dog looks one way and one dog looks the other way. Goodfellas. That's
Oh,
that's the painting that Tommy's mom makes, and she shows the guys when they're eating pasta with the guy in the trunk.
Wow.
That's how nerdy we are.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty intense.
Where
this one?
Where's that one? Yeah.
That's There Will Be Blood. So
Daniel
Flame,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Okay.
that's wood art of that's my favorite movie right there. I don't know if you guys
There
are
Will
s-
Be Blood.
yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
I think
Yeah.
that's probably the greatest film of the century. I would say.
All right, well, let's talk about movies. What do you guys been watching this year? What's your favorites?
this year.
If you've
Have
had
movies
time.
come out this year.
It seems kind of low this year.
2024.
Dune's great. Challengers is fantastic.
Need to see
Yeah,
Challengers.
I just saw La Chimera, the Italian film,
Yeah.
and then what was it? Perfect Days, the Japanese film from
Okay.
Wim Wenders.
Wenders, yeah.
Absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
Check it out. I loved it.
I
Okay.
keep talking about The Fall Guy. It's
Fall Guy's
awesome.
fun.
I don't know if you
I
guys
liked
seen
The
it.
Fall Guy. I
Yeah.
didn't love The Fall Guy.
I thought it was awesome.
I'm more of
but
a
it
summer
was-
guy.
More of a what?
No, never mind. Terrible joke. Terrible joke.
But
So-
for people who experienced on set, did it feel like an authentic to what it's like on set movie? Behind the scenes.
I think definitely in terms of like the different departments and the way
Yeah.
the departments
Yeah.
work.
AD joke, we have a sound joke,
Yes.
yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah, I thought all that stuff was good. All that
Yeah.
specificity was great.
I've never been in an action movie, and I'd love to. So, but I'm sure the whole stunt situation is.
I would say the best stunt was the first one because it was a oneer.
You love a oneer.
Oh yeah, I love
Oneers are
I
great.
ate them up.
I mean, I was watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood yesterday, and there's so many great wonders. The one where they
That's his
leave the
best movie.
restaurant.
His
Every
best
time
movie.
I watch Once Upon a Time,
That's
it
a
gets
hot
better,
take.
Best Tarantino
higher
movie.
and higher
It's a
in
hot
my
take right
ranking.
there.
in my opinion.
It raises up higher and higher every time. But there's so many great wonders, whether it's just like mounting on the side of the car for like 3 minutes, or when they leave the restaurant after he has to go start an Italian movie. He's like,
Yeah.
starting goddamn Italian movies. It just starts on them, and the crane pulls up, and they drive away. It's like 40 seconds. It's amazing. I love it so much. It adds so much to like the being escaping inside of a story versus just watching a movie. You just feel part of it. I think wonders add so much to that.
I'd like to say more about Fall Guy.
keep talking about Fall Guy. I was going to talk about Challengers, which I love.
Oh yeah.
I
Love.
feel like Fall Guy, it's interesting. I mean, two of the biggest stars in the world coming off of the biggest movies ever last summer, Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
I think that movie should have made a lot more money than that.
Yeah, I
movie made.
agree. Yeah.
So I think there was something I think people didn't know the IP. Do you guys
I
know
did
that was a
not know-
TV show
I
from the
did-
80s?
I did not know
Never
it.
watched it.
People
yet,
don't know,
but yeah.
didn't know the IP, and I think
Yeah.
there was something in the marketing that didn't make it clear enough for people why they had to go see it. I guess.
I think it was the marketing, and then their Super Bowl ad was all the trailers were just super jump cutty,
Yeah.
and you couldn't. I mean, I get what they were doing, but you couldn't get really a sense for the story. And
100%.
they made them like very flashy, super fast cuts, And I think it was hard for audiences to connect to that movie from the marketing and be like, oh, I want to leave my home and go see that in theater.
Yeah,
I think that was a problem.
And a lot of the big expensive movies this year, just besides Dune, aren't doing that well. Furiosa, I don't know if you guys saw that.
I saw that movie.
Yeah, it was
last
really
weekend.
good, but
yeah,
it just
I really
did
liked
not
it.
perform well at all. But I love being back in the Mad Max world. It was so fun.
it's a big problem when these big movies aren't doing better because everybody just then questions what's going to happen to movies in theaters.
Yeah, especially when it's a $180 million budget with Mad Max Furiosa, and it's just it didn't even make.
And
that
he has
back.
another movie planned after that
Yeah.
that he might not get to make now
Yeah,
because
unfortunately.
it's not making enough money.
But Bad Boys 4 is gonna be a big hit.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is
So
that your
Do
prediction?
you think?
Yeah,
You
I think
saw
it's
it
gonna
last
be a
week.
massive
It's
hit.
really funny.
It's
It's
gonna be a
really
massive
good.
hit.
Yeah.
It just made $6 million on Thursday night previews last night, just on Thursday night. So it's probably gonna open to 45, 50 million, make close to half a bill, I would say. So it's gonna be a big hit.
Okay.
But Challengers was, I think, the biggest like success story for being the mid-range budget movie doesn't get made that often, and Luca finally made like a $40 to $50 million budget movie, which is kind of non-existent, and it's already almost at 100 million. And I love the film; it was absolutely fantastic. And speaking of wonders, there were 3 remarkable wonders in that film.
Yeah. 2 things. First of all, I always loved Guadagnino. I think he's just
The best,
fantastic.
yeah.
He's just like the filmmaker of our time right now. And Justin Kritzkes, the writer of the movie, went to Brown with me, or I went to
Oh, wow.
Brown with him. Yeah, we went to the same college, just like you did. He was a year younger, but
He's your buddy.
Yeah, he's such an amazing, talented writer, and yeah, we used to do theater at Brown, and I'm so happy that he's getting success. I think I haven't talked to him in a while, but like I think he has his next movie is also with Luca. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
that's his first script that he's written that got
it's
made.
his first
right?
script
Yeah.
that got made.
It's really impressive writing. It was awesome.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah.
that movie. Non-linear storytelling, lots of complicated characters. It was really good.
Yeah, well, he's got a great taste too. So yeah, I'm very happy for him. No, I'm yeah, it's really cool.
That's
and he's
awesome.
married to Celine Song.
As well.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I forgot
yeah.
about that. I mean, Past Lives was amazing. I love that movie. Those were my favorites from 2023.
Which did you guys see? I mean, obviously, Anatomy of a Fall was
Oh yeah,
amazing, but I loved. Oh my god, it won the Oscar. Best foreign, please.
Io
Zone of Interest.
Capitano.
Thank you.
Oh,
wait, no, not
Zone
Io
of
Capitano,
Interest.
which was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Zone of Interest.
Oh, Zone of Interest. Yeah.
Zone,
Yeah.
and of course, Society of the Snow was also beautiful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Io Capitano, I was like, that was a poem
Floored.
right there.
Yeah.
Wow. But Zone of Interest was my favorite movie of 2023.
I saw Anatomy of a Fall and Zone of Interest back to back on the same day in theaters.
He came back. He was a wreck.
That's an intense
Damn.
day, dude.
Yeah.
Which one do you like better? Just
I mean, I like Anatomy of a Fall better, but I
Okay.
think Zone of Interest overall was a remarkable piece of filmmaking and a higher level in terms of the art form. But I think that Anatomy of a Fall was incredible storytelling and acting, and the dialogue in that film was just remarkable, and the acting was just top notch. And I was so impressed by everybody.
I could not agree with you more. Sorry. I could not agree with you more, but there was something about Zone of Interest that just the way it was shot, it was so voyeuristic.
You know how they did it?
How so?
They hid all of the cameras. So
They
none
didn't
of
know where they were,
none
yeah.
of the actors, they knew there were cameras, obviously, but they didn't know where they were. So the entire production team, they set up 12 different cameras around the house, outside, inside, interiors. They would put them in corners of rooms. They would hide them behind furniture or behind like items on the tables, and they would just have the actors perform. And the actors wouldn't just perform. It wasn't just like Sandra Hüller performing like in the bathroom. They would perform all together simultaneously. So while she was in the bathroom, the kids were playing in their bedroom, and then the husband was doing something, and then there were people in the backyard.
See?
It was all being filmed simultaneously by the entire crew.
And then they would throw in noises and sound
Yeah.
effects and other stuff, so they would all hear these things, and then they would react to them at the same time.
It's crazy. It's never been done like that
That's
before.
it, that's filmmaking. The emotions that I was feeling just by a simple image, with no dialogue, just people living.
Watching Anatomy of a Fall as a writer, I felt like the movie won that the screenplay Oscar for that 10-minute fight between the
Yeah.
husband and wife.
100%. Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
I love that movie,
Wow.
but like that 10 minutes, it's so specific. It's like it was like a play, but amazingly told.
Felt so relatable to anyone who's ever been in a relationship. You had those same kind of things that you build up and then you let it out finally at once, and you
Yeah.
can see the position she's in. And I love the ambiguity of that movie too, of how it ends. Did she do it? Did she not do it?
Yeah,
What
my
do you
wife
guys-
and I fought for multiple days after watching it.
Do you guys think she did it?
I don't think she did.
I don't
but
think she
maybe
did
that's
it.
just because
Yeah.
I like to think that
Yeah.
We're all good people.
I like to have
Yeah.
fun. I think she did it.
You think she did it?
Yeah, it's so fun for me.
What do you think?
I'm trying to think what I thought when it was over. I don't really remember. Because
So the director she directed Sandra Hüller to perform it as though she was innocent, but she didn't say to Sandra
Whether,
Hüller
yeah.
whether she was or not. So even the crew,
They
it was all left ambiguous.
Yeah.
But she asked her to perform it like you're innocent, and that really prevented Sandra Hüller from doing anything like over the top or anything sinister, which I think would be great because even if she did do it, she would be playing innocent the whole time in front of everybody. So her entire life would be a performance from then on.
I think adding that idea, now I'm remembering the movie better. I think adding that idea where it looked like he had maybe tried to commit suicide a few months earlier certainly lent it a little bit more towards maybe he committed suicide.
Maybe. It's like American Psycho with Willem Dafoe when he was instructed to do scenes like you're suspicious, you're not suspicious, you think it's him and not, and like kind of edit it all together and keep the audience on their toes in a lot of ways.
Great story.
I love that
movie.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
It's a great one.
It's kind of messed up how many times I've seen that movie.
It turned into a comedy at this point for me whenever I watch American Psycho. I just can't stop laughing. It's fucked up.
You should talk to someone about that.
I know. I probably
I'm just
should.
always enamored by Christian Bale's performance in that. I think it's probably still his best one, honestly. It's
Really?
incredible. It's incredible what he did in that movie.
I mean, it's Christian Bale.
Yeah,
He's so
ladies and
good.
gentlemen.
I mean, he's so good in The Fighter, though.
Oh,
He's great in The
He's
Fighter,
so
yeah.
good in
He's
The Fighter.
incredible. Dickie. He's incredible in The Fighter. Because we're from Boston. It felt like one of the best Boston performances I've ever seen in my life.
What was the other one? The Machinist.
Yeah, Machinist.
When he
Yeah.
lost all that weight.
Yeah.
Machinist and
Seriously.
Batman back to back.
Would you ever drop weight like that for a movie, or
Sure. I mean,
yeah,
if
like,
I have to,
would
why
you be
not?
willing to transform like intensely for a film,
Yeah. I have no issue
going
with
up, going down?
it. Yeah.
You go full frontal.
Why not? If I have to. Like,
What's the next project?
season
Acapulco
4.
season 4, everybody. Apple loves full
Apple
frontal.
TV.
Clearly.
I was working with Apple. I mean, they make some great movies, and they've obviously got some great contenders. Obviously, they didn't get much with Killers of the Flower Moon, but they have a lot of great projects.
They're
and
consistent.
I love their
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Severance is absolutely incredible
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've been really great supporters of the show. And we go through the international division, which is different than some of the other stuff you see on Apple. So we have our main executives. I'm going to do a little shout out to Brandon Brito right now.
Yeah, Brandon.
Who is our number one advocate of the show and has been from the very beginning. And they really stressed upon us from the beginning to make the show as authentic as possible. And so that's why the show is very bilingual. That's why every single character in the show, depending on who we cast, we really tried to cast people from Mexico. And if they weren't from Mexico, Rafael is from Spain. We reference that his character is from Spain.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Julia, Camilla who plays Julia, is from Colombia. So we reference that she's from Colombia. So it's really important to Apple and to everyone that the show has a lot of authenticity, which is the word that Rafael likes to make fun of me about. But
He says
say
it
that
all the time, too. He
too.
says it every episode.
The fans make fun of me all the time for authenticity.
but it's really important. It's really, especially as a white guy coming into this world.
Yeah.
You know, the majority of the writers on the show, the entire crew, the majority of the cast, everybody who's involved in it are Mexican, and it or Latin, and it matters. And you know, it's really important to us to be as accurate as we can with the depiction of that stuff. And I think a lot of that really started with Apple.
There's something that I loved
No,
about the show
don't
because
do it.
I'm gonna have to do it. Sorry,
Don't
you go,
do
but
it.
I'm gonna
Don't do it.
I'm gonna have to do it.
I want to see what's gonna happen.
Well, no, and you actually mentioned it too. You said you said authenticity, and then you used the word accurate. And him and I go back.
Did I
and
say the word
forth.
accurate?
You did. You said the word accurate.
Okay.
I heard it.
You
we
wanted
play
to
the
hear
tape
it.
back.
Yeah. No. First of all, I agree with you. I just think Hollywood right now, it's all about authenticity. And yeah, I'm all about authenticity, but you can be authentic without being accurate. And I think Hollywood confuses those two.
Yeah.
You can be authentic without being accurate. You can play a heroin addict without needing to be a heroin addict.
Mhm.
You can play someone from New York when you're from Chicago. You can play Lincoln and you're from the UK, like Daniel Day-Lewis. Or you can play Nelson Mandela and you're, from the US, like Morgan Freeman. I think Acapulco represents Latin community in a very authentic way. And also, in this case, in a very accurate way, which is great and it's beautiful. I play a character that's from Spain. I'm from Spain. But Austin created the show. Austin is not Latin, but he talks about Latin culture in a very authentic way. He represents Latin culture in a very authentic, real, organic way. And I think there's value to that because, yes, we're used to Latin stories and Latin people at the forefront in this industry. And I'm all about Latin storytellers, Latin filmmakers, Latin creators, Latin executives telling Latin stories. But I'm also about Latin filmmakers telling all sorts of stories and non-Latin people telling also Latin stories. I feel like it's good to give
It's
value.
bridging the gap.
Yeah.
That's a good
It-
point.
it-
So that like if you're a Latin filmmaker, you're not just pigeonholed and just telling a Latin story. You can tell any kind of story.
Yeah.
Also, guys, what is a Latin story? Do we talk about like an Asian story, a Chinese story, a Japanese story? Like, what is Latin? Is not a genre. You know, you have horror films, you have comedy, you have musicals, but Latin is not a genre in and of itself. And also, you know, Latinos outside of the US, we call ourselves Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Colombians, Argentinians, Ecuadorians, the Spaniards. We don't go around saying we're Latin. It's really a term that was coined in this country, and it's kind of used to box everything that is south of the border. But in the US, it mainly means Mexican with a little bit of Puerto Rican sprinkled on top. Latin culture is so big, it's so diverse, it's so rich. Like I said, Mexican, Colombians, Bolivians, Ecuadorians, it's Paraguayans. You can't fit Latin into a box. You can't label it. And I feel like that's where we have it tilted in this country. Latino is a culture. It's not a nationality. It's a culture. It's not a color. It's a culture. You can be Asian and Latino. You can be white and Latino if you want to bring race into the conversation, which I also think race is a social construct, but that's a conversation for another day. So
See what happens, guys, when we
just opened that door. But I think it's important to say it because Austin has created a beautiful story that represents Latin people in such a different light, especially here in Hollywood. We're used to the narco story, the stories about immigration. And you know what? Yeah, those stories are part of the cultural imaginarium of Latin people, but they're like such a specific small part of it. Like we have so many more beautiful stories to tell in Latin culture that are not being told. And funny, it takes Austin Winsberg to tell them.
Have you seen American Fiction?
Yes,
So American,
and that's
yeah,
the.
it's a
thank you.
perfect illustration of he's a black writer and he's just trying to tell stories, but the industry wants him to tell what they deem are black stories, which is a certain
Yes.
kind of black story, and that's an issue with Hollywood where you're a person of color, Hollywood thinks they should only tell that story and only they can tell that story. Whereas we're all human beings, we're all people.
Yeah.
You know, Spike Lee made The 25th Hour, about three white guys. You know, you don't have to just tell a story about like how you look or who you are. It's just storytelling. It's just writing.
But I do think there's a certain amount of responsibility that goes along with that too.
Mhm.
So in terms of Acapulco, in terms of the creation of Acapulco, I knew as a white guy that my level of specificity to that might not be as culturally accurate as it should be. And so bringing Eduardo Cisneros in to do the pilot with me and to kind of create the show, he taught me a lot of stuff about like, no, we don't want to have gang members and drug cartels, and we don't want to see Mexicans painted in this light. That was very eye-opening to me. And I think anytime that I try to go into a project in a culture, I don't want to have people tell me that I can't write something because I'm a white guy. But I also think if I'm going to write something as a white guy, then I need to do the homework. And sometimes that homework, it means bringing somebody else into that with me who understands that world, so that we are being specific, accurate, authentic, all the words.
But you said it. You as a writer, you have to do the homework because you're telling a specific story and you want to make sure that it's complex, layered, dimensionalized, and that it's not cliche. My job as an actor, if I'm gonna portray someone that's from, I don't know, a New York cop, my job is to represent that character in an authentic way. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna do my research to make sure that I, do my job and represent this character authentically. I'm not a New York cop. I haven't shot people or like I don't know, like but like I'm not. I might not be accurate. I wasn't born in New York, but I'm gonna make sure that it is authentic, which is what Daniel Day-Lewis does. I mean, I could give you so many other examples of accurate actors representing like Latino actors representing Latino characters in a non-authentic or in a non-authentic way, but they're still accurate, you know? I mean, we have maybe Colombian actors playing Mexican roles with a Colombian accent. That is accurate because we have a Latino doing a Latino character, but like it's not authentic. And we have Mexican actors, for instance, right after Acapulco, I work with Eugenio on another show that he's doing. It's called They Came at Night. It's a Mexican show, Mexican production. Eugenio, Mexican actor, he's the lead of the show. He plays a Spaniard. And I, a Spaniard, play a Mexican guy. I've worked in Mexico for so many years in Mexican productions, local Mexican productions. I've always played a Mexican guy. Always. So this...
But you also make your accent.
Of course. I do it in an authentic way. I'm not going to start speaking Mexican with like a Spanish accent.
You're aware of the difference in what needs to be done.
I didn't know a lot of these nuances before Acapulco started. I learned these nuances as I started doing the show, and I started to understand the importance of these nuances.
Well, if I don't know, if you're Mark Wahlberg and you got to play someone from the South and you're speaking like you're from Boston, you're not being authentic. It's as simple as that. If you're Meryl Streep and you're playing Margaret Thatcher and you're playing her with an American accent, you're not being authentic. That's it. It's as simple as that.
But where the culture has gone and where these questions start to happen now are like, if you're not gay, should you not play a gay character? Just using that as an example.
Yeah.
Like, these are debates that are happening.
Well,
right
I
now.
think it's about opportunity because before we had Latin actors where, okay, we have a story and it's a Latin guy. We're going to have Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, I don't know, and
John Voight in Anaconda.
Sure, and John Voight. And
he's from, I forget where he's from. He's from somewhere like Colombia.
Oh my
But it doesn't matter. We're going to have Ben Affleck, Matt Damon be up for the role. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon could be Latinos. Like, Latino, like I said, is not a color. You don't need to be, you can be black, brown, white, Asian. Like, they could be of a Latin country and of Latin culture. But before they were the only ones that were being considered for that role. I think it's about opportunity. Now we have Ben Affleck, we have Matt Damon, but we also have Oscar Isaac, we have Pedro Pascal. And I'm like, okay, can we level the playing field a little bit? And I also think, look, at the end of the day, this all comes from people in power trying to do the right thing, because for so many years, the industry has been completely tilted and skewed. And now I feel like the spectrum has, in a way, overcorrected itself. And now it'll eventually go
balance
back to
out,
like, a middle ground that makes sense for everybody. But I think it's all out of positive will to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Sometimes, unfortunately, we have people in position of power that want to do the right thing, but maybe they don't have the language to do the right thing. And then I think they need to let people in with the right language to be a part of the conversation. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's beautiful.
There's a great
that.
Denzel quote. There's this great Denzel quote. He said it's about race, not culture. And he compared Spike Lee making Malcolm X, Scorsese making Goodfellas, and Spielberg making Schindler's List. He said Scorsese could have made a great Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Spielberg could have made a great Malcolm X, and Spike Lee could have made a great Goodfellas. But they know the intricacies and the nuances of each of those cultures, and that's what made them really the perfect choice who could only make those films as good as they are.
Yeah. Antoine Fuqua made King Arthur.
Yeah.
That movie's sick.
Trained to King Arthur. Great reference. Great example. That movie slaps, too.
I love that movie. That movie's fantastic.
But oftentimes in Hollywood you get put in a box or limited, and they say you can only do this one thing.
But it only happens in Hollywood, which is, sorry, but very silly. Like, it doesn't happen. This conversation doesn't happen outside of Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, publishing, obviously now with what's it called? American Fiction. That was a great example of how it's happening in publishing too, probably.
Yeah.
And that's a great metaphor for what we're talking about, anyways, because that opening scene of that movie is hysterical, and then kind of the ending when the white people are telling the two black characters that black voices are important right now, but they're not listening to the black voices that are in the room right now. It's just super ironic.
That's why that movie kind of like really struck a chord, because it just plays, and you think it's a parody of what's happening right now, but it's not.
More of a reality.
100%. Sometimes I'd be at Latin events, and someone would walk in and they'll be like, so good to see all those beautiful brown faces in here today, representing Latinos. Yes, let's go. Let's see all those beautiful brown faces. And I'm just sitting there with someone that's Latino who is black, with someone that's Latino who is white, with someone that's Latino who is Asian. By the way, all these people from Mexico, from Colombia, from Cuba, and they're looking at me like, what is this? Brown faces, Latino? We're like now equating brown to Latino, a color to what Latino should look like. And by the way, a lot of those people saying those things are Latinos in this country. I feel like there's just like a certain lack of education, and also a certain lack of
ignorance.
But at the same time, we take it, we think we know. We take those Latino voices that are ignorant as the ones that we need to follow because they're Latino. And I'm like, wait, they're wrong.
America's a cultural bubble. I mean, people don't like to leave that bubble, and they think that this is the right way to do everything.
Yeah, and I also think at the end of the day, what it's doing, it's breaking Latinos apart. It's separating us when what we should really be doing, it's be united, because together we are stronger. And not to bring it back to Acapulco, but again, the world of Acapulco is so rich in showcasing the diversity of Latino culture. Mexicans, Venezuelans, Colombians, Spaniards, they all work together and they at a hotel, and they are all successful at this hotel.
I also think maybe something that's slightly revolutionary about Acapulco that seems so simplistic it should not be revolutionary is we view every character as just a three-dimensional person. We don't think of them as this one's Mexican, this one's this one's that. We just think about the situations and the stories and how this character would react in that moment. We're not identifying people by their ethnicity or their culture.
I've never played such a rich, complex, layered, beautiful character in my life. The guy who gave me that job is sitting right here, and he's not a Latino guy.
Hell yeah.
Great point.
Guys.
Also, something that's revolutionary for Acapulco is it's a project south of the border, and it's not a yellow tone or a yellow color grade.
Oh my God.
Which is just every time we leave the south of the border, it's always yellow.
Sure. I'm sure it was discussed at some point. I mean, but I'll tell you, you just made me think of one thing with the show, and I wonder what your point of view is on this, Rafael. Like, we have a lot of Mexican-American actors and actresses come in to read for roles on the show. But because they grew up in America, their Spanish-Mexican accent doesn't sound Mexican. And so they don't get cast because they sound too American when they're speaking Spanish.
Doesn't sound Mexican to who?
To the Mexican writers and casting people, saying that's an American-sounding Mexican accent. That would not exist like that in 1985 Mexico, so we don't cast them.
I find that sometimes, again, the people making those decisions is like, I have this voice and it's my cousin's voice. And then someone else comes and it's not matching their cousin's voice, and it just throws them off. Again, if this is a Mexican-American actress or actor and they're reading for a part that is a Mexican part and they have somewhat of a pocho accent, which means like Americanized Spanish.
Yes.
And they need to play someone that doesn't have a pocho accent, and they cannot do it, then they're not portraying someone authentically.
Right. So that's why they don't get cast.
Okay. Well, that's also on the actor or actress to make sure that they can, speak without a pocho accent. I don't know. That's living it
Did you
out
guys think we would go down this road today?
No,
I'm down. I'm down.
How often do you have these conversations in here?
Never. Seldom.
Yeah, it's great, honestly.
No, we love having guests in wherever we.
Can we talk about the Extraction movies? If we're talking about Oneers,
Oh yeah.
The Wonders are great. Yeah, I watched those on YouTube.
I mean, I love those two movies.
You got to talk about Birdman next.
Which one? I love Birdman.
We have a Birdman poster in the house.
Birdman's one of my all-time favorites.
Waters.
But that one in the first Extraction blows my mind.
Yeah.
And I know there's a bunch of cuts in there. I know there's like CGI to get to some of that.
Still works.
It is seamless. There were a couple of those shots where I went back over and over again. How did they fall with him when he's falling from? It's amazing.
Have you ever seen The Raid?
Yeah.
The Raid
Raid.
has some
Yeah,
great
Raid
ones.
I haven't
two-
seen
Raid
that
two
one.
also.
Yeah.
Watch The Raid.
They're great.
Okay.
An Indonesian action martial arts movie, and they did a ton of great wonders and
The second
incredible
one is
martial
like
arts.
3 hours
Okay.
longer.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like 3.5 hours. It's
That's
like,
a
holy
cool show.
shit.
The extraction ones are great though because the stunts involved are intense. Like they're doing fire burns, they're doing all kinds of crazy
What's
stuff.
the director's name? Sean something? Or,
I can't remember.
But he is a stuntman
Yeah.
turned director, and he's like generally operating the camera like on the car, performing the stunt too.
Yeah, I've seen some of the behind the scenes of that. And it's
crazy.
It's wild.
What's that cooking movie that's an incomplete wonder that we were talking about last week?
Oh,
Boiling
what's-
Point? I don't know.
Yeah, Boiling Point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole movie's a wonder. I haven't seen
Yeah.
it yet, but we were talking about last
With
week.
Steve-
the
yeah,
whole
with
film
Stephen
is just a
Graham.
one shot.
Yeah.
A real one too.
A
Not
real
blended
one.
or
I
anything.
have so much catching up to do. I haven't seen a bunch of these movies.
Come on.
Long Day's
We'll
Journey
watch
into
them.
Night? Was that
Well, Long Day's Journey to Night
Has
has
a
it's a Chinese
26
film made by
26
Begon.
wonder.
So that's a 56-minute wonder. If you want to check it out, I highly recommend it. It's a Chinese film that came out in 2018. It's a 2-hour movie, but the wonder starts halfway through. And it starts in a cave. They go over a valley on this huge line. There are little intricacies like someone has to drive a little toy car carrying a glass on it.
Oh, wow.
Someone has to hit a pool shot. Candles are lit. There's a spark lit set. There's a huge crowd. There's several performances, and this character's wandering through basically this abstract like dream space of a small village. And it is by far, I don't think there's any competition. It's the greatest wonder of all time.
Did you see? Is it Athena? That French movie?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a great one. That's a
wonder is
real one.
incredible.
Yeah, so it's about this girl who gets tied up with these like criminals, and it's just like she travels the city. They did it all in one take, and it's like this really great kind of gritty neo-noir like thriller. It's so good. Athena's great.
Yeah.
Good
He
shout.
sees everything.
I try to.
I see a
Haven't
lot. But
stumped you yet.
No, the flamingo one I didn't see.
Oh yeah.
I make fun all the time. Have you seen the
Flamingo Kid.
the dog? It's a Ukrainian film from 1982. Oh yeah. They got a great wonder in that too. He knows it.
Oh my god.
All right, well, how about we wrap this episode up right here? Guys, thanks so much for coming in studio talking about Acapulco. Season 3 just dropped on Apple TV Plus this past month in May.
It's authentic and accurate.
It's authentic and accurate as hell. Austin,
And
Rafael.
beautiful and fun.
Yes.
It's just a fun show, guys.
It is a
Above
good
all,
time.
It's just a fun show.
You'll end almost every episode with a big smile on your face. There are ups and downs, but I mean, it's such a happy show. It makes you feel great. I loved it.
Thank you guys for having us. It's been really fun.
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure.
All right,
Thank
take care, everyone. This episode was executive produced by our chosen one patrons, Cody Moen, Andrew Hagan, Becca Keene, Benjamin Cook, Calvin Murphy Griggs, Nicholas Martin, Darian Singleton, Tyler McFly, Andrew Hagan. Our chosen one patrons are our biggest supporters. Thank you so much. Raiders of the Lost Podcast is a mirror image production. Sound mixing done by Jacob Kossler. Opening music by Chase Jackson. Thank you for watching Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, notifications for sure. Listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you can listen to podcasts, and be sure to check out this other content we have on our YouTube channel.